Hello everyone, welcome. It's Miss Darling in the studio. Happy that you're here and hope you'll stay around for the entire video. I've got some good information for you, and I think it will really help you in your designing and creativity, working on your own junk journals or what you're making for other people. And so today we're going to talk about the 12 design styles that you can apply to your journal pages or to a journal cover or, ephemera, whatever it is you're working on. Choosing a specific style will really broaden your ability to do a lot of various type of work and not become a one-trick pony. And so we're going to talk about that, and we're also going to cover color and what colors work together and what colors don't work together very well and why. And so this will help you in planning out maybe the paints or the inks that you plan to use to make sure you're going to have something that's pleasing to your eye when you're done. So we'll put the color aside for right now and get into the design styles. So I didn't know when I was filming this video actually yesterday that first part of this section was totally out of frame. I didn't discover that till I went to edit it today, and so I'm going to refilm that one part. So if it looks like eventually two different things going on, it's because there was, but I just had to redo the first part of this section because I want you to be able to see what the heck I'm doing. Anyway, so what we're going to do now is discuss the 12 design styles. And what I've done, as you can see, I have a piece of cardstock here, and I did this by hand, and I'm going to show you and tell you how I did it by hand for those of you who may want to make one yourself, and also feel free to make one very similar on your computer if you're handy and got the right software. But for those of you who don't, you're not going to be left behind. I'll show you how I made this. Actually, I may put this on my Etsy shop for anybody to purchase the file at a real nominal, cheap El Cheapo price. So if you don't want to make your own, but you want one, go over to my Etsy shop. The link is in the description box below, and you'll be able to find it available there. And, if not, make your own. It's kind of fun to make. Now, you will need some tools if you're going to do it the same as I did. What I first did was I measured and found my vertical center, and I found my horizontal center. And then I started with laying in the squares for the middle. And the reason I did that was because I was going to use the outer edges of the middle section to determine how far away the outer rows should be. I guess they're columns, not rows. Okay, so I found my center, and then I have this handy little plastic template. I've had it for decades and decades, and it's just a bunch of squares in different sizes, and I picked the largest square. And so then I just, once I had my measurements in, I could just lay my template down like so and draw in with a pen. You can use a pencil. I did it in pen, so I wanted to make sure you could actually see what was on it. I was afraid a pencil wouldn't do. Anyway, so I laid them in, and then I took my measurements. I went from the edge to the outer side of the sheet, got that center, and then just, dropped them in, trying to make sure that they were somewhat at the same height. And, then I switched and measured from here to there, got my center, and then laid in my far right column. Okay, so that's all there was to it, and then I just put the names that describe each of the styles I'm going to show you, you know, below. And so just, you know, follow along. I'm going to try and demonstrate what I'm talking about with a pen here. Let me find, I think this is the one. Yeah, I'm going to use this. This has kind of a brush tip. And this is one of the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen, a soft brush. I get these in a box of 5, and they give you different styles of nibs. I'm sort of happy with it, but I've had, you know, brushes dry up on me sooner than I thought they should, so I kind of have, you know, a mixed feeling about them. Anyway, but this is going to work for our purposes today. So the first style is called cruciform, and it is, as you might expect, something that's going to look a bit like a cross. And so you'll often find professional artists and graphic designers that use this style, you know, to paint a painting or do, you know, some sort of graphic design project. And so we use it too to create masterboards or pages for our journals. Anyway, it would, you know, be not staying away from the center. It would be, you know, something like this, and then, you know, like a big swash or something down like that. Anything that kind of shows a cross-like form. It could take up more space or not. That's not important. It's just, you know, having the feeling of something crossing over. And that's your cruciform style. The next one is called cantilever, and this is, you know, if you look at, let's say, a bridge is anchored on one side, and then it might, you know, curve out into space. And so the cantilever is kind of this type of feeling, okay, anchored on one side, and then on the opposite side there would be just a little something over here for balance. Horizontal is then, as you would expect, it's on your painting or your page, whatever it is you're working on, you would see some type of design that's got a lot of horizontal lines in it. You know, there could be other things going on, but your major focal point and the feeling that you're going to get is horizontal feeling. So that's that. So that's all I'm going to talk about in this particular clip, because we're now going to flip over to what I filmed yesterday to see what we do with the rest of these styles. So, see you in a minute. Now we have overlapping squares, and that would be something like, you know, you might have, let's say we're working with collage, and maybe we put down something, you know, that's square, and then we overlap it with something else, and maybe we come in with something big, you know, and they're essentially squares, and with various things on them. They could have numbers or anything, and we're just overlapping all over our page, okay? Right? So overlapping squares, and they could be cut squares, they could be torn, you could, I tend not to mix the two together in the same work, but I see that other artists do. So, you know, it's up to you. It's personal preference. But that's essentially it. Now, similar to that, we have the next one, which is overlapping curves. So let's say you had a piece of paper that, you know, was curved like that, and then you had something else curved that you glued on top or painted on top, whatever you know you're working with in terms of supplies or styles, but you're always, you know, overlapping, and it's a curved shape. Okay, so that gives you an idea of what an overlapping curve could be. It may be something else in here that balances out with that shape there. Now the vertical, it would be the same as the horizontal, only we're going up and down. So, you know, you're going to have some strong vertical lines. Maybe, you know, something like this. Doesn't matter. You can have other things going on in the background, but essentially your foreground is going to be heavily installed with strong vertical lines to definitely set the tone of the overall style that you're working with. Now we have constellation. Think of maybe the sky and the stars, and so maybe you'll have little shapes or whatever that you're kind of putting in random places here and there, as if it were, you know, stars in the sky, things of that nature. And so it's real random, and you know, usually made up of little bits and pieces, and it could be that they're just all blended together and forming a nice background, or that some bits are really strong and dark, and others are light, and so you're creating a story of some sort, but it's very kind of haphazard and just a little bit all over the place. So that's our style of constellation. Now, meandering is what you might think that it would be. It's where, you know, you might have a line or something that is kind of just wandering all over. It could be as simple as something like that. And it's just, you know, think of walking on a path in a garden or the forest, or somewhere, you know, where it's just winding around, and, you know, it just takes you on this journey from point A to point B, but it's very a pleasant walk, and it's just taking you around and just very peaceful. And so that's kind of the idea for a meandering style. And then, similar to our vertical and horizontal, we come down to the diagonal, which is as it says. And the very first video I ever made for this channel was a video of me making a diagonal style video. And the diagonal doesn't all have to be, I mean, the whole thing doesn't have to be covered in a diagonal stroke of any kind, but it should be emphasized so that, you know, you really get that strong feeling. So, okay, so I'm just kind of roughly, you know, throwing something down. There's far more diagonal lines here than there are vertical, so it would definitely still be considered a diagonal style as opposed to a vertical. You can combine them, or the entire thing can be diagonal shapes all going in the same direction. Okay, so now we're coming down to the final three, and this one is called the golden section, and this is exactly where we have taken and divided it into thirds, and so we are placing, in this case I'm going to do it over here. I'm placing a focal point right up here in the sweet spot of 1/3 from the far right and 1/3 from the top. So of course you could have a focal point here, or it could be down here, or over here, or over here. And when that is basically your only design that's there, then that's referred to a golden section style. Okay. Next we have tension, and this one is a little, I think, a little more difficult to execute, and the reason being that it requires a really strong sense of balance, and you're wanting to, as an artist, you're wanting to create tension in the mind and heart of your viewer. And so you might have some strong thing, you know, coming down like so. What it would be, you know, is up to the artist, but you have some strong thing pointing downward, and then, you know, something that it's pointing to. And it would be very small and kind of underneath, and this looks very top heavy because it is, but you might decide to, you know, just add a little something over here for balance. But it's this strong, pointed, whatever shape that's pressing down on something below, which causes the tension. And so that is a style. And, you know, play around with that, because that's not used nearly as much as other design styles that you see. And so we come to the last one. I had to take a small break there, but we're back now. Okay, so the last one is portraiture or spiritual. And you'll see oftentimes when, you know, an artist is doing a person that, you know, especially if they care about them, they often will go to a symmetrical design instead of asymmetrical. Most, I think, art that you see is asymmetrical, but, you know, this might be one of the few times that they might, you know, put a figure, you know, in the middle, and especially if it's, you know, spiritual, they might, you know, add some sort of halo effect around, and so you get this type of feeling and look in, and it is a specific design style. So there you have the 12, and so I encourage you to make your own sample of this, you know, put it in a book, or, you know, on a sheet of paper like I've done. I have one that's in my sample book that I carry around all the time. So, you know, just to remind me, and, you know, so I know exactly where to go when I maybe want to refresh my memory on a certain design style. I have it there, but of course now I've got it this, and so you can make something like this, or, you know, come up with your own way of notating what the different styles are so that you can refer back to them in the future and bring a lot more variety to your work. Now, as for color, color is a really broad subject that could never be covered in any video, no matter how long. It's just so broad. But I'm just going to touch on a few important things to help you. And I think if you grasp these concepts, that you'll be in a pretty good place to be able to create whatever you want to create and have it come out looking just like you hope it would. So this is a color wheel. Now this is one that was made for the interior design trade, but it doesn't matter what industry it was made for, because they're all the same. Color never changes. It's just there. The exact hue might be altered a little bit, and then of course there's shades and tints of any color out there, and one only has to go to a hardware store and see all of the paint selections that there are that can be mixed for you in a paint color to realize, there's just no end. It's just infinite. But if you have a color wheel, that will show you what main colors go well with that color. For instance, here we've got red, orange. And so if you go to the adjacent colors on the wheel, then you'll know that all these colors, if combined together in the same page or painting, whatever it is you're doing, they're going to feel good together. That's called a monochromatic color scheme. Now, if you go to the opposite, the complete opposite, that's referred to as complementary. And I'm going to, I think, need to back out here a bit so you can see more at one time. So if you're working the opposite, that's complementary. This is monochromatic. And then you have split complementary, which are the colors you come straight across but one slot over. And you have split complementary. And so, knowing, you can, on a color wheel, you can turn it to whatever color you want and instantly be able to tell what your monochromatic colors are and what your complements are. Okay? So this is very handy to have, particularly if you're new to color, you're a new artist, you're a new journal creator, you don't know anything about color. This is a really handy thing to have. They come in all shapes and sizes. You can find several to choose from on Amazon, and buy the one that seems to, be something that you can understand and work for you. Okay, so those are very valuable. The other thing about color I want to point out is the importance of warm and cool. Now, warm and cool refers to the temperature of a color. And you need to understand that every color under the sun has a warm version and a cool version. And I often hear people talking about, well, yellow is warm. Well, yeah, it's basically warm. But there are cool yellows as well as warm yellows. There are cool reds as well as warm reds. Cool greens. This would be a cool green here, but look at the warm greens, okay? So every color under the sun, well, black and white are not considered colors, but everything else has a warm version and a cool version. And so the best tip that I can give you overall is when you're picking colors to go together, if you stick with this, you'll be fine. You'll be more than fine. Combine warm colors with other warm colors. Combine cool colors with other cool colors. Don't cross them. If you're trying to put a warm color together with a cool color, it's just not going to look as very good. You can do it. I mean, you can do whatever you want to. But if you want it to come out looking and feeling spectacular, keep your warms with other warms. For instance, mix warm here with warm up here. You know, I mean, if I talked about red, I'm sure you can picture in your mind a fire engine red. It's very warm. There's a lot of yellow in it, as opposed to a burgundy red, which has a lot of blue in it. So really, the temperatures are decided by how much yellow is in the color or how much blue is in the color. Now, there are some colors that are kind of halfway in between. If you go to a hardware store and you look at the swatches of a paint company that they're selling, they will usually have cool colors on one side and warm colors on the other side. And so it's fairly easy to tell which is which when you get to the extremes. But then there are a lot of colors in between the extremes that could go either way. And those are the colors that are more difficult to pinpoint and could probably be used with either warm or cool. But they've got to be in that center area where it either has very little yellow or very little blue in the particular pigment itself. I hope that makes sense. So again, warm with warm, cool with cool. Don't cross them up with each other and you'll be good to go. Here's another sample board I made. I just ran across it and I thought I would show you something that I made, because I have a bunch of acrylic paints in my studio and I wanted an example of everything I had. So again, when I go shopping for acrylic paints, I don't want to buy the same hue. You know, I might want a tint or a shade of it, but not the exact same thing. And how am I going to know if I've got a duplicate or not? Well, I need to have a board with me that shows me what I already own. So I made this. It's just this is actually the end piece of a booklet of paper, so it's real thick. It's about the thickness of a mat board. And so I had this on hand, and I thought I just took one of my little templates and I drew all these ovals. And then I had, took a brush and each one of my paint tubes, one by one, and filled in the ovals, trying to keep some sort of semblance of, having my greens together and my blues together and whatnot. After a while, it got a little bit more cumbersome to put light colors together. For instance, I think this whole top part here I did at one time and just took them as I got them out and painted them down, and then I got a little bit more organized as I went on to fill it out. And so this is a great thing to have. There's many different ways of creating a sample board for yourself, and I think they're very important to have, and for many reasons that I've already discussed, and other reasons I haven't even thought of yet. Anyway, so that being said, I think that was about all I was going to cover in this. Oh, I could maybe throw this in just to finish it out. And this is just some pages that I printed off and made that talk about the difference between collage, decoupage, and assemblage. And so collage is essentially taking elements, pieces of paper, or in here there's even text examples, and gluing them together to form something new. In this case, it's the face of a man, but it, obviously it doesn't have to be representational. It could be abstract, or it could be form anything. But that's collage, gluing onto paper or canvas, or even a piece of wood or some such. And you can incorporate different items, different types of things. It doesn't have to all be paper. It could be pieces of fabric or pieces of, wood or whatever. So, but you're creating art on basically a flat surface of some sort. Then you get to decoupage, and if you have seen my videos on how I make my decoupaged vases, then you'll know. And decoupage is often used on furniture, and it's the concept of gluing paper, various papers, or other types, maybe even some fabric, but essentially paper. You're gluing it onto furniture or some three-dimensional object, and then you're coating it with several layers of, say, acrylic, some sort of coating, and turning it into a work of art on something three-dimensional. That is decoupage. And then assemblage is where you're collecting various things. They're not just, pieces of paper, although paper can be involved, but they're little items, things that you've collected or found, and they're often put into like a wood case that's maybe separated into little, pockets, and then it's filled out and assembled together, and maybe it tells a story and maybe it doesn't, but you're working with three-dimensional found objects usually in assemblage. So that's the three different types. And in case you're wondering what the differences were, the Grandmaster of Collage is a man named Kurt Schweitzer, and he's deceased now, but he was very famous for his collages, whether they were works of art or even structural things, houses and rooms. And look up Kurt Schweitzer on the internet and see what all he was famous for. You'll be really blown away and probably very inspired. And here's just a few of the collage pieces that he created. And you can see design elements in it. You can see the directional, the diagonal, and he uses numbers, he uses text, and different types of things. And notice that in every one of his pieces, it goes from dark to light. And I don't mean white. I just mean light. So it's a use of the depth of color, and everything isn't just all the same temperature. It's not all the same shade or tint. It goes full spectrum. And generally his layouts take the eye around to where you're seeing the entire piece and not just focused on one area. And here we can see a strong vertical design style that has here. These might be considered more like overlapping shapes there. Here's a great use of, now you can see here's a square, and let's look and see where he put his focal point. It's not in the middle, but it's close to the middle, but it's off to one side. And so this is a great example of what really works in a square shape. Okay, so you could go up and around, but here he's gone real close to the middle, but he's not at the middle. And so go left or right of it, and go up or down from center, and you'll be in good shape. So here's a few more examples of his work, and you know, it's just really wonderful. It's colorful. This probably has some sort of story from his childhood in there. There's some pictures of people there. I don't know, maybe that's his mom and sister or something. Anyway, you know, you can incorporate all kinds of things together to tell your story. And here's some large examples. You know, very directional, very diagonal in this one here. A little bit harder to tell here. I would say maybe, isn't this interesting? We look over to the far right, and we've got all this going on, balancing out what's over here. Not my favorite, but it's one of his works. And here's a really large piece. And here's our focal point down here, and look how much lighter it is than the background around. Okay, so that is essentially dark on the perimeter, and then pow, you got this light area in kind of this lower quadrant, a little bit centered, which is interesting. But then of course he was alive and working a long time ago, and you could say, well, is he breaking the rule? Well, maybe so. I don't know what the rules were, if they were slightly different at the time he lived than now, but certainly it works. But just want to point out, it's not in the middle. Your middle would be right there, and this is lower and a bit off, pulling your eye off to the side and then around. See how it's pulling the eye all around? And so that's ideal, and what the most famous artists have a knack for doing that, and the rest of us straggle along behind. So anyway, I thought you'd find it interesting to know who is probably considered the king of collage. And, you know, so you have some great works of art to look at and take inspiration from and to learn from. So, you know, find artists that you like and study their work, and ask yourself, as you're looking at a painting or whatever, what is it, you know, why did he do that? Why did she do that? Why didn't they pick this place or that place? Or why does it work? Why do I like this? And, you know, ask yourself questions, and that's a great way to learn about art and painting, and you guessed it, creating journals. So, okay, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Let me know what you think. Get the video a like and share it with people you know who are interested in art, and I would appreciate that. And I thank you for staying through the whole thing. I do appreciate that so much. And so that'll conclude it for this video. This is Miss Darling calling this a wrap. Bye-bye.